Out of the gate. Jack Heath, J-Dog on the boards. We are looking at a Wednesday, 24 days into September. We're just about 9:07. Do have some rain a little bit on the way that will help the dry conditions. Breaking news out of Texas this morning before we go to local news talk. And hey, Alexa, hey, Google, play the pulse of an H. Breaking news out of Texas this morning. Multiple people have been shot at an ICE facility. What is happening out there in this anyway? At an ICE facility during a prisoner transfer at a Texas ICE facility. We're going to keep you posted on that breaking. Plus, John Decker, our own White House correspondent, live this morning, bottom of this 9 o'clock hour. He's going to have the latest on the president's address to the United Nations, but we're already into today's news. And speaking of that, I'm going to get back to some of the breaking news. Mike Pomp this morning has been all over on our News Talk Morning Information Center, that accident on Route 101 involving a truck. One person is dead, by the way, after that accident on Route 101 in Candia. And the lane was backed up for quite a while. In fact, that one of the sections, or 101, was closed for a while, but back open. One person, one fatality. A truck and a motor vehicle. Many reports of a burning car out there, and yours truly even got caught up in having to reroute this morning. So that was a mess this morning. We're also hearing about something on 89. Go to our Pulse of an H app, and we have all the traffic for you if you're driving and you want to avoid those snarls. You've heard yours truly speak on the show for months this summer. Public Utilities Commission was holding rate hike and public hearings. One of our sponsors, AARP of New Hampshire, was involved, intervening, trying to argue on behalf of the rate hikes. But let me cut to the chase. We all know that we live in New England and here in New Hampshire, probably worse in Maine, that we are facing just really, really high electricity rates. The cost of energy, let's just cut to the chase, both residential and commercial. I've been talking about it all summer. I don't understand what the Public Utilities Commission recently did. I don't think the governor understands it. I think people are asking for another hearing. And I'm not even sure the state's or region's largest utility understands what the PUC recently did, because what they granted wasn't even what Eversource was requesting. But very nice of Bob Coates. He's the president of Eversource here in New Hampshire. And I do appreciate what they've done for veterans separately. We'll talk about that later. President of Eversource New Hampshire and William Hinkle, their communications director, are in our studios here in the Capitol. I want to thank them both. Thanks for coming in, Bob.
Good morning, Jack. Thank you.
Well, what I like on the show is when I get critical and raise questions, sometimes people like yourself are civil and decent enough to come in and say, let's talk about it. Let's explain this. It's a complicated subject. I get that. Simple question is, why are rates so high?
Yeah. Good morning to everyone. We at Eversource are laser focused on affordability, reliability, and safety. We know that any rate increase impacts our customers and creates challenges when many costs for necessities are going up across the board. And in that sensitivity, we have 1,500 employees out there in the communities working. Their family, their friends, they're all impacted by the rate increases as well. And we work very hard to control our costs and keep it as affordable as possible. Our rate changed, and there were several components to that I think we can break down this morning that kind of happened simultaneously in the month of August that add to the challenges that our customers are facing. Last month, our rate changed for supply. That we had the PUC order that adjusted the distribution rates. So we had to go out to ask for a rate increase because, quite simply, the revenue coming in from the electricity before the rates just wasn't covering our costs, and we had to go out and ask for a rate adjustment to cover the costs to run the transmission and distribution facilities that we serve our customers within New Hampshire.
Now, why the performance-based rate approach? Explain what that is that you selected or chose.
Yes, sir.
What is that? Explain it.
We went into and put in a request for a rate increase, as I said, to increase the revenues to cover the cost of running the system. Traditional rate making would be we would look at the cost of the business, say how much does it cost, and apply that and adjust the kilowatt hour charge. But as I highlighted the sensitivity to affordability for our customers, we also saw a different model. And in the performance rates rate making model, instead of having like we had from 2019 to 2025, 24, when we filed the rate case, a huge spike in costs that we needed to recover, a huge sticker shock for customers to understand the rise of those rates. Performance-based rates offers a smaller incremental annual adjustment, either for inflation and or utility adjustment. So the rates are better for customers. They actually end up being lower for customers with a smaller adjustment period, reducing that sticker shock. In addition, we've seen that in performance-based rate making, and there's several benefits. Ultimately, the rate period, as I said, it was a 5-year rate period from 2019. Yep. Ultimately, it turns out to be less in the total time period.
Bob Coates is president of Eversource here in New Hampshire, really the largest utility. We have other suppliers and distributors of electricity here. What did the Public Utilities Commission do, Bob, recently? Did they, what they approved and what they came up with after they heard public testimony? I don't know if they heard much from ratepayers, but what they approved is not even exactly what you were requesting. What do you understand? I mean, can you explain that?
So the order from the PUC is complex. Rate making is a complex topic.
Isn't that part of the frustration for customers? I say on my show often, you can't even understand your bill with all the gobbledygook. I mean, distribution, stranded, refer, all these. It's like a healthcare bill. It's like, how do I'm just looking at the one number in the corner that says $584 a month for my electricity in August when my air conditioner was going.
Yeah, as I said, there's parts to the bill for supply. As you know, we go out and we bid on the open market for our customers for supply. We make no money on that. There's no revenue from that.
Is that a New England thing, by the way, when you go out to buy?
Each state is
regional.
Each state has their own bidding and tranche that they go out for, and it's done in concert with the regulatory groups that are in those states. In our case, we go out in February and August, and we go to the open market, the same open market that Consumer Power and all the other suppliers go to. We have a construct with our regulators that's a 6-month tranche. We bid for that. Whatever the bid is for the cost, 11.2 cents kilowatt hour this year, or this tranche for August to February, it goes straight to the customers. There's no money made. That's what it is. We encourage customers to shop around, look for if they have.
Because we're technically a deregulated market, right?
We are a deregulated market. We do not have generation. We sold our generation back when we deregulated. So Eversource is the UPS of electricity. We just deliver it.
So just to understand for people out there that are busy and working, you buy it like everyone else, essentially, is what you're saying.
Correct.
Okay. But you're the largest distributor supplier of it in our region.
That's correct.
Okay. And you can explain what the PUC ordered. Maybe you start there before I ask you my next question, what they recently ordered.
So after a year-long hearing, 14 days of testimony, like an adjudicated or almost court case, the PUC took all of our information, all of the interveners' information, and tried to create a balanced order to provide the revenue we requested. However, we didn't get all that we requested, nor did we get more than we requested, and came through and produced an order for this performance-based rate mechanism that has some customer service charges and kilowatt hour charges increases.
Were we right or wrong this summer when saying Eversource was requesting a 17% rate hike? Was that factual or not?
So it's about where the numbers come from. So yes, when you look at it in a total bill, as I said, it was a 5-year rate period. It was a significant amount of money that we were deficient. So yes, there were some other folks that said if you just take it off the distribution portion of the bill, it was higher than that. It's just math.
And to be fair to you, I was on the show saying when I was looking at the news, reading this during this period of the PUC, 17% rate hike. Has anyone's income gone up 17% this month? Has the groceries gone down 17%? I mean, this is going to hurt. I want you to know I was saying that. I don't want to be a hypocrite.
Understood. I heard it, and I understand completely. As I said, I empathize completely that it's steep, but it's not 17% a year. It's over a 5-year period.
So are you open? Is it the governor's calling for, AARP's calling for? Are you open to another PUC hearing or not?
So yes, we got an order on Monday from the PUC to go back to rehear some specific pieces of the order, including the service charge, and we're open to have that conversation, as we always with all of our interveners and regulators, to understand there's a question about annual prudency review, have that discussion, as well as some other threads around the New Start program. So we're going to go back and have those conversations, absolutely.
And one other thing I want to ask you, Bob Coates, president of Eversource here, and William Hinkle, communications director. You're going to, and I think that's good. So you're saying the door's not shut, the door's open to look at this. But as a ratepayer, commercial and residential, is there anything more that you, being the biggest player in this piece in terms of bringing us the power, can do to work on lowering what we pay as customers? Or is it kind of like a process that there's very little you can do?
Two threads there. One, on supply chain, we absolutely support kind of an all-in approach where we, as I said, we're not really concerned where the electrons are coming from. We just deliver them. But we absolutely support any incremental supply we can get into New Hampshire that will stabilize the market and drive costs down. We absolutely support that. In addition, we support transmission infrastructure to try and move that energy to the right places. On the distribution costs, as I said, we're going to happy to have the discussion about the service charge. The service charge did go up, and the PUC order did award us $2 increase a year on that service charge. And we didn't ask for that, but they decided to do that. I'm not going to speak for the PUC. I wasn't in the room. I can only infer why it was done. But basically, what I believe is happening is they're trying to balance the allocation of those costs, the fixed energy cost, the fixed service costs, from, as you highlighted, commercial to residential. Commercial was paying more than the residential, so they're trying to balance that. The poles, the wires, the transformers, they all have to be there, whether you use 400 kilowatt hours, 1,000 kilowatt hours, whether you're a vacation home that only uses it 1 week when you're up here.
Yeah.
That's got to be there as a fixed cost. We got to cover those costs.
William Hinkle, a thought, communication side, go ahead.
Thanks, Jack. Just to reemphasize the point that Bob made, like we're talking about several different components, right? And your energy supply, which Eversource has no control over, that's the largest, most volatile portion of a customer's bill. The August 1st rate changes that we just saw, the supply portion of your bill, it was an increase of just under $14 per month. Whereas the distribution rate case we've been talking about, that was on the order of about $4.84. So to just emphasize what Bob had said, like there's no single silver bullet to solve affordability in the region when it comes to energy, but it's absolutely necessary that we get more supply into the region. That's the largest, most volatile component of a customer's bill, and we need more of it.
And that's what Bob said, he's open to, but and we do. I mean, more energy is better, right? More supply is better. Bob, before we go to break, on the commercial side, affordable housing is something we all recognize in this state is really the biggest number one problem and challenge. Some of the commercial users have said, they're trying to build some apartments and things like that, but they can't get, and I'm not so sure this is you, so I'm just asking you, you know more about this than me. They can't get, one of the builders wanted me to ask is, can't get transformers ordered to the site, like to get the power to a apartment complex that might be more affordable. Is it tough getting transformers right now?
Post-COVID, we really struggled with inventory and
on transformers.
On transformers, that has since solved itself. We've been able to go out and procure from multiple sources, and we no longer have significant delays on those transformers. Tariffs are adding in some increased costs potentially for steel in these transformers, but we really believe we resolved some of the transformer inventory issues.
Bob, if I could just
add go ahead
too, with our distribution rate case and the increased customers have seen in that part of their bill. The last time our distribution rate had changed was in that 2019 time period that Bob had talked about prior to the pandemic. And when there were struggles with the inventory of transformers, the other thing that happened too is the cost of those transformers increased significantly, around 100% increase of cost there. And that's a part of what we're talking about with the distribution rate adjustment that just took place.
All right, we want to take a quick break. Bob Coates, if you can stick around, I would like to talk on the positive side on what you're doing in Franklin with the veterans and supporting. I know I've met through William, you have some veterans inside of your Eversource team. And we all like, by the way, when our power goes out, we like to see those members of the team out there. So I want to talk about that. I do want to give an update, though. We are getting, what I always do on these big national stories is I go to the local media. I did that in Minneapolis. I did that the morning and the day after Utah. In Dallas, Texas, at this ICE shooting facility or ICE transfer, 3 people have been shot. And there were 3 detainees that were shot, and multiple were in critical. But the point is, we are getting news. There's a shooter, an active shooter at the Dallas ICE facility. We're trying to get an update, but I do believe that we have a report that two detainees have been killed. In the two detainees of ICE killed at a Dallas facility. One shooter found dead as police search for possible sniper. So here we go. Unbelievable. All right, back on the Pulse of NH in a moment. All right, we're going to have John Decker, our own White House correspondent, coming up in a little bit. But Bob Coates, he's president of Eversource here in our region, or New Hampshire, and William Henkel, communications director. And I want to thank both for coming into our studios this morning. Busy morning, a lot happening. We're going to have the latest on Texas. 2 detainees killed at a Dallas ICE facility. one shooter found dead there, and may have been a sniper situation. So here we go. We'll have more on that. Bob, I want to talk about the veteran stuff in a moment, because that's very important. Actually, I've said often on my show, the bad jumps to the top, the divisiveness jumps to the top, the anger jumps to the top, but the good doesn't. And I do want to touch upon the veterans in a moment, but to wrap up the utility electricity rate discussion, if I'm just the average electricity user, what I've learned from having you in the studio this morning is you buy out there like everyone else, and we don't have enough supply in the region. So we need more energy supply, and that can help lower our electricity rates. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Number two, you're open, the door's open to work with anyone, including the PUC or the state, to always look at ways to lowering the rates. You're not like saying, hey, we got it, we're not going to be open to anything. You're open to like even the PUC looking at this again or whatever.
Exactly. We absolutely are focused on affordability. The proposal for performance-based rates was an attempt to make it more affordable.
Yep.
Understand that we need to grow the business and have the money to run the business. And in that, performance-based rates increases transparency, accountability, provides performance metrics that we have to show that we're delivering, and it does not become an open checkbook. There's caps on spending.
Yep.
So we have to run it efficiently, smart, and be affordable for our customers, and safe and reliable for our customers.
And if I'm a residential or commercial user, and I've seen these rates go up and they're going up again, it's not just here, it's in Maine, it's, the New England, we don't have enough supply. So all the people out there that want more natural gas, let me explain something to you. I don't want to get into this, but I can, it's my show. It takes natural gas to make electricity right now. Okay. A lot of people don't know that. So we need more. We're the end of the pipeline. Finally, if I am a ratepayer, and I am, because lights go on, we like these things in our hand to be charged at night, so we like our power, and people get a little cranky in the winter when they lose it for a few hours. Over the next 2 to 3, 5 years, do I just need to realize it's going to keep going up, or do you think it's going to stable off at some point, or is the only way it's going to stable off we need more energy supply?
Well, on the energy supply piece, we need more supply, more diversity. As I said, we have transmission infrastructure that we can move the power around. Those ideas you talk about for expanding natural gas and 5-10 years out, we have to manage this over that time period. For the distribution rates, what we propose with performance-based rates, it will go up a little bit. There's a small adder every year as long as we're performing. There's still a prudency review in all the investments that we make to verify that they're useful, prudent, and beneficial to customers. And then we have customer services, as we've been doing. We've been going out holding informational sessions on how customers can manage their bill, how they can manage energy utilization in their homes, and the New Hampshire Saves program. And you highlighted, the storm impacts. Interestingly enough, from that 5-year period that we went into this rate case, we've cut reliability in half. In other words, customers used to be out for about 160 minutes on average a year. We're down to 72 minutes. Frequency is down. Storm response is improved dramatically. Resiliency. All these investments that are the companies making in the system are there to keep people's lights on so they can go to school, go to work, and live productive lives. And
we'll see what happens with the PUC if they look at all that. But the recent ruling, were you surprised or happy with that or not?
It was a complex order. Fair and balanced. We had to figure out what it said because there was a lot in there that we hadn't asked for. And to your point, that's why we're open to these dialogues to go back and get some clarification on rehearing on some of these elements.
Finally, veterans, they shouldn't have come at the end of this discussion. They actually should come at the first. You were up at Franklin last week for the opening of the military and veterans campus. Thank you for that. Why do you support veterans, Eversource?
Eversource has a proud history of supporting all our communities. Veterans is a focus for us. As you said, we were there and supported the Veterans Center in Franklin. We held our veteran stand down in Manchester, to help provide services to veterans. We have many veterans employees in our company, and in fact, our employees have created their own 501c3 organization to go out and raise funds from employees, veteran partners, et cetera, and we give that money back. So we want to support the veterans. They've given, timeless, huge service to our customers, to our company, to our country, and they deserve to be supported. we should have their backs just like they had our backs, and that's why we're giving back.
Bob Coates, head of Eversource in New Hampshire and the region. Educational, informational, respectful, and I appreciate you coming in. I really do. I was critical for months this summer looking at this, looking at inflation and groceries and then healthcare and everything, or rent and mortgages. So I appreciate you trying to break this down. I do. I know you don't set the rules. Sometimes it's easy to get mad at the utility. Probably goes back to the Monopoly game when you pass go. But thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
And thank you, William Hinkle.
Jack.
All right. Hey, Alexa, Google Play the Pulse of an Age. John Decker on deck next. Around the corner, Scott Brown calling his Republican running for the U.S. Senate. Back in a moment.
Jack, you'll
A busy morning between that accident on 101 earlier, the truck, and one fatality this morning in Candia, and that was on the east side, but really all of 101 impacted. And the situation in Dallas, Texas, we do know that 2 detainees at an ICE facility were shot and killed. One suspect is dead. We don't know more, but that's in Dallas, Texas. A lot happening. Stay tuned at the bottom, top of the hour, Fox News. Our newscast will have all of that. We just had the head of Eversource this morning, a little bit earlier than I expected, here to come on the studio, saying you've been complaining and talking about us a lot this summer and fall. We thought we'd come in and answer some questions. So I really do appreciate that when electricity rates go through the roof. the head of Eversource and his communications people respectfully wanted to come on this morning, so I obliged. I always think that if you're critical of something, you should be willing to sit down and listen in a civil, calm way to hear from them. And I appreciate Bob Coates coming in. I appreciate John Decker, our White House correspondent, will be joining us live. And I appreciate Scott Brown. He's a former U.S. Senator, current U.S. Senate candidate, ambassador, for being flexible this morning. He was originally scheduled about 10 minutes ago, but we thought we'd take the head of Eversource in our studios trying to explain why we're paying so much for electricity. Good morning, Senator Brown. All right, so where's this race at? I guess Johnny Sununu was out there seriously exploring. He may, I don't, he's going to jump in. State Senator Dan Innes, we had Chris Pappas on the show Friday. What are the top issues when you're out there talking? What do people, there's so much happening between you and me. I really don't care about Jimmy Kimmel on the air, although I think he did a fairly, good job talking about it last night. He's back on some stations, but frankly, there's bigger stuff out there. But the environment is very toxic. It's very divisive. What do people, when you go out and talk, what's on their mind, Scott Brown? Scott Brown, you served as ambassador to New Zealand in the Trump administration. Someone told me recently, you'd know this, being more of an election person than me, that of all the states Harris won in the presidential election, the closest margin of victory was here in New Hampshire. The gap between Harris and Trump was much closer in the end, and we know Kelly Ayotte won the race against Joyce Craig for governor by nearly 10 points. So who knows with independent voters? But I'm going to come back to the Trump question, which you may get tired of asking. I know you've been supportive of the president. You were as an ambassador. Some would say if he gave you the endorsement of the nod in this race, it could put you over the top as the nominee, because I would say the Republican Party in New Hampshire is Trump, and Trump is the Republican Party in New Hampshire. So have you had any recent dialogue with anyone on the Trump team, or just waiting to see what the president and his folks may or may not do in this race, especially if Johnny Sununu gets in? I was no. Mm-hmm. Right. Yep. Right. Well, when you were on our podcast with Backyard, one thing that stuck in my head, you were talking about being a basketball coach, and I know you do triathlon stuff. One thing I do know about you is you are very competitive. You work hard. I remember the race when you were running against Gene Shaheen. People forget it was actually a much closer race. Not actually, it was a close race in the end. I guess my question is, how's fundraising going? Some would say that your name recognition is up there, pretty high in the state, and so is the last name is Sununu. But fundraising, some people say, is a critical part of these things. And in terms of support, I have no doubt Chris Pappas is raising a lot of money. How is Scott Brown doing in that front? But are you finding it you're being successful at it, or is it frustrating? Okay. Let me ask you this. Depending on what John E. Sununu does, my suspicion is he'll jump in a few weeks. Is Scott Brown in this till the end, no matter what in the primary? You sound like Ray Bork there talking about his. Could, uh, well, well, the invitation's open. I want to ask you one final question. It's more on the personal side. You're a dad, you're a husband, and you're a granddad. I guess I can. I guess I can share in that, except for the four. Um, in this environment, and I'm just going to ask everyone. I mean, you look at this environment right now. There was a serious, I guess you'd call it, death assassination attempt. Against Governor Kelly out in the last week or two. That great work by public safety officials to uncover that guy. We know what's happened nationally. We certainly should. It's a very toxic, divisive environment out there. Does it give you any pause, or when you're talking with your as I say, my smarter, prettier, better half, and your family? Does it give you any pause, like the kids say, "Dad, why are you doing this again?" Hmm. Yeah. So it's that important to you? Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Scott Brown, Republican U.S. Senate candidate. Good morning, New Hampshire, the Pulse of an Age. Thank you, sir. Thank you. All right, going to take a quick break. We'll update you on the head of Eversource coming into our studios a little bit earlier than I expected this morning. Wanted to address yours truly and those out there to explain why we're paying such high, the electricity rates. I mean, what we're paying for rates. The average rate in the U.S., a very smart person shared this with me, is about 17 cents per kilowatt hour. The New Hampshire rate is 23 cents on businesses. It's worse. You look at these increases, and everything else is going up. Nothing's coming down. Groceries, your healthcare cost, and you wonder if this is even on businesses. Is this something they look at? I mean, Maine's worse. Maine's worse. Now, EverSource, in fairness, does not serve Maine, and I don't even know if EverSource is the highest utility rate in New Hampshire. Liberty or someone else out there might be being higher, but you gotta think businesses think about this when they move to a region if they use a lot of power. And then finally, Maine. Speaking of Maine, when we come back, today's the day, I think. Lucky Maine. We're gonna wrap this one with a bow today in Maine. So EverSource does not service Maine, but I'll tell you, today in Maine, wrapped with a bow. $118 million more in taxes, state of Maine taxpayers, everything from your fishing licenses to your four-wheelers to your pensions to your cannabis. And here's the one that's a kick in the shins: your streaming services, audio and video, 5.5%, I think, tax. $118 million in new taxes for Maine taxpayers in Maine. That's what you get when you vote that way in Augusta. That's what you get. I'm just going to point it out. And they have an income tax. They have a big fat sales tax in Maine, and they have some of the highest per capita property taxes in the nation. One study this summer I cited had them higher than Connecticut and California for property taxes. So don't say, oh, New Hampshire, if you had an income and if you get rid of, if you got rid of our income and sales tax, our property taxes would come down. Tell that to Maine. Go ahead. Tell that to Maine. Hey, Alexa, Google, play the Pulse of an H. Our poll question, by the way, up on the Pulse of an H. Our poll question on X on the Pulse of an H. J-Dog will come back with maybe the results from yesterday's. Do you think the utilities, not the PUC, do you think the utilities can play a role in lowering our electricity rates in New Hampshire? Yes or no? Apparently, we need more natural gas. So all the people out there that lined up for years saying, not here, not in my backyard, buckle up, enjoy the higher rates. It takes natural gas to make electricity. Back in a moment. real quickly, from yours truly, there's so much news made this morning already. The president of Eversource for New Hampshire coming into our studios this morning, which I do appreciate. I do. We're paying some of the highest electricity costs we've ever seen in our lives, and pretty interesting stuff as we get going. Pretty interesting, and we're going to keep an eye on all the above, and we'll have more on that. But real quick, I do want to mention on the Tylenol autism story in our poll yesterday on X. I don't know. In other words, I don't know if this is based in science or medicine and proven or not. And it's been a lot of criticism on President Trump or Kennedy and this administration talking about Tylenol as a contributor to autism during pregnancy for women. Well, let me just ask you a question. Can I just ask you a question? I don't know, but I do know that 10 years ago, 1 out of 60 kids, autism. And now I do know it's 1 out of 30 and probably getting worse. If nothing else, isn't it good to put more focus on this? Something is spiking autism. The numbers are going through the roof. I don't know the answer, but instead of jumping up and down when someone has a thought, and maybe you don't like the thought, and now everyone's defending Tylenol. I don't know. I honestly don't know. I mean, I don't want to insult anyone, mom and dad out there, parents with kids on, but I know that something is spiking. It could be processed foods. I don't know. But when's the last time a president of the United States, let me ask you a question. When's the last time a president of the United States had a press conference or talked about autism and its concerns for young parents? When's the last time? I'm waiting. I'm just pointing this out. When's the last time a president put attention on autism, caring about it, wanting to drive the numbers down? Whether or not Tylenol has anything to do with it, I don't know. I really don't. I talked yesterday about the credibility that's been lost in the CDC from all the ups and downs, and the Fauci one thing confusing us, don't do this, do that, get this, don't do that, parents get this. I don't know. But isn't it good that we put attention? Maybe some medical researcher will come out with something new because of this renewed attention, but the numbers of autism are going through the roof, and it's okay to talk about that. What can we do? If it's neurological, fine. If it's environmental, fine. If it's these screens, we had Dr. Vince Cowley on my show the other day talking about this. If it's the screens that kids are looking at under the age of 1 or 2 to get them to stop crying, if that's a fact, I don't care what it is. Let's just get the numbers down. Can we at least agree on that? All right, coming up. A little bit later on, our friends from New Hampshire Technical Institute on our community college focus, also affordable housing. We'll have more thoughts this morning as we kick off my series every week. It's easy to talk about affordable housing as the number one problem facing New Hampshire in this region, but how about solutions and answers? That's my game. And we'll have more on my interview with the head of Eversource, Bob Coates, in our studios this morning addressing these very high electricity rates. Some news made here first this morning, only on the Pulse of an H. They are open. Eversource is open to more hearings with the PUC to see if there's a way to lower these electricity rates that they just recently ruled on. And we'll have more on that at the top of the 10 o'clock. Hey, Alexa, hey, Google Play the Pulse of an H. Jack Heath, J-Dog on the boards. Back in a moment.